Hey guys, welcome to the Steady Steps podcast. This is Brian Volpone, and thanks for taking some time to be with us today. In this episode, we're going to talk about something that's going to seem really minor, and to be honest, for some of you, this is going to sound absolutely ludicrous. It's going to seem like such a small change that it really can't make any difference in your life, because we're going to talk today about the difference between have to and get to. The first time I ever stumbled onto this whole concept wasn't like an inspirational quote or a podcast I listened to. It was actually an accident, because I had to talk to a friend of mine about a struggle I was having, and I was going to have to be very transparent and vulnerable, and frankly, those are two feelings that I really hate. But I absolutely knew I needed to discuss this topic, and I didn't want to bring it up. It was one of those uncomfortable conversations where your stomach kind of tightens just thinking about it. Because I was going to catch him later in the afternoon, I had most of the day to basically dread the conversation. But then the shift happened, and it was kind of wild, because my thinking changed. I was 100% convinced I needed to have this talk, and I started reframing it in my mind. I remember very clearly thinking, God always blesses obedience. Having this conversation is obeying Him. I don't have to have this talk. I get to be blessed for obeying Him. And it wasn't about pretending the conversation would be fun. It wasn't about sugarcoating anything, but it changed something in me. Suddenly, I wasn't dragging myself in with dread. I was stepping into an opportunity to be honest and obedient, and it was a chance to be blessed. And it 100% changed how I approached the situation. So today we're going to talk about that tiny shift. Have to versus get to, and why it has the power to change how we think and act.
Today we're looking at something really simple but surprisingly powerful. It's about language. Specifically, how just a tiny shift in the words we use every day can, well, completely change how we feel about our responsibilities, our chores, all that stuff we usually dread.
Yeah, it sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But it's this core idea of switching from I have to do this to I get to do this. It fundamentally reframes things. Duty becomes purpose. Obligation feels more like, well, a privilege, an opportunity.
Okay, but I know some people hear that and think, oh, great, more positive thinking fluff, but it feels like there's something deeper going on here. Why does it work?
Well, it's not just fluff. It really taps into how our minds work. Words aren't just labels. They actively shape our reality, our perception of it.
So I have to. What's the baggage there? Psychologically, what's happening when we say that?
I have to immediately signals pressure, right? It feels like a burden. There's this sense of external force, like you have no choice in the matter. It positions you as passive.
Like you're being pushed around by your schedule or your boss or just circumstances?
Exactly. And our brains, they naturally resist that feeling of being forced. There's an inherent pushback against commands we feel are imposed on us.
Okay, so then I get to choose comes in. What does that do differently inside our heads?
I get to flips the script immediately. It introduces gratitude, opportunity, perspective. It shifts the whole framework. Suddenly, you're acknowledging the underlying privilege that makes the action possible. It forces you to see the context, the benefit.
So it changes where the control seems to be coming from, like inside instead of outside.
Precisely. Psychologists talk about this idea of locus of control. I have to puts the control firmly outside you, extrinsic, but I get to. That pulls the locus of control inside. You're asserting agency, choice, even if the task itself feels non-negotiable, like, say, paying taxes. You're connecting it to something bigger you value.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Understanding that internal shift is key. Let's make this really practical, though. How does this actually play out day to day? Let's unpack some common examples. Where does this really hit home?
Yeah, let's do that. Think about work. So many people wake up with that feeling, I have to go to work.
Yeah, that heavy feeling, like it's just draining your time.
But what if you consciously switch that? I get to go to work. What happens then?
Okay, I get to go to work. It makes you think about, well, having a job in the first place, using skills maybe, earning a living.
Exactly. You're connecting it to the benefit. You get to use skills you maybe spent years learning. You get to earn money to support yourself or your family. You get to collaborate with people. The focus shifts from the cost, the time spent, to the reward.
Okay, that works for work. What about family stuff, like picking up the kids from school? Sometimes that feels like just another task on the list.
Yeah, I have to go get the kids. It sounds like a chore, right? But try, I get to go pick up the kids. What's the privilege there?
Well, you get to be part of their day. You
Yeah.
get to hear about what happened right away. You get to be that person they see waiting for them.
See, it connects you to the relationship, to being present in their lives. It's not just logistics anymore, it's connection.
What about self-care? Exercise is a big one. I have to go to the gym. That feels like such a drag
Oh,
sometimes.
absolutely. It sounds like a punishment almost.
Yeah.
But flip it. I get to exercise. Suddenly you might think, wow, I get to move my body. I'm healthy enough to do this. I get to invest in my future health. It becomes an act of care, not a chore.
Okay. I'm seeing the pattern. Even something mundane like cleaning the kitchen. That feels like a stretch. I get to clean the kitchen. Really.
Yeah, that one tests the principle, doesn't it? But think about it. I have to clean this mess. Versus, I get to live in a home that's mine, that's safe and comfortable, and I get to take care of it.
Mm.
The gratitude isn't for the grime, obviously. It's for the underlying stability the home represents. You get to create order in your own space. It's subtle, but it changes the feeling.
So it's about finding that little nugget of opportunity or privilege in almost anything.
Pretty much. It's about consciously redirecting your focus.
Okay, so we've seen how it works in practice. But what's the deeper psychological payoff here? Why does this matter for our overall motivation and well-being?
Well, it ties directly into what drives us. There's this concept in psychology, self-determination theory, which basically says we thrive when we feel we have autonomy, that sense of choice, competence, and connection. I have to relies on extrinsic motivation, pressure, obligation, maybe avoiding punishment or getting a reward. That works, kind of, but it burns you out fast.
Right, like doing something just because you feel you must, not because you want to. Deep down, it's draining.
Exactly. But I get to. That shifts you towards intrinsic motivation. You're connecting the action to your own values, your own goals, your sense of self.
So, you're not doing the dishes just because they're piled up and someone might complain?
Right. You're doing them because you choose to live in a clean space, because that aligns with your value of order or peace or whatever it is for you. You're internalizing the reason.
And that kind of motivation lasts longer.
Much longer.
Yeah.
Because it comes from within, it feels less like effort and more like, well, living in line with who you are. It builds energy instead of depleting it. Tasks feel less like burdens and more like choices.
Which I imagine links directly to feeling better overall. Less resentment, more control.
Absolutely. That sense of ownership and the gratitude that naturally comes with the get-to framing are huge factors in well-being. You're essentially training your brain, moment by moment, to spot the opportunities hidden within the obligations.
Okay, this is really practical stuff. Let's give people listening a way to actually try this out. How about a challenge? For, say, the next 48 hours, really consciously try to catch every time you think or say, I have to, and swap it for I get to.
Yeah, do it in real time. Don't just reflect later. Notice what happens when you make that switch. It forces a little pause, doesn't it? A moment of reframing.
And notice the feeling. Does the tone change? Does a little bit of gratitude sneak in, even if it feels forced at first?
And maybe take it a step further. Think about the one task you really resent, the one that feels like pure burden. Ask yourself, what is the absolute tiniest hidden privilege or opportunity in this situation? Even if it's just, I get the chance to practice patience here, or I get to learn how this annoying system works, or I get to prove I can handle this. Find something.
Because let's face it, we all have responsibilities. That's just part of life. They aren't going away.
No, they aren't. But how we approach them can change everything. When you start seeing them not as commands from outside, but as things connected to the life you actually have, things you get to do because of that life. It just feels lighter. The language shifts, the perspective shifts, and suddenly purpose and maybe even a little gratitude start showing up in the middle of your routine.
So if this one tiny language tweak, shifting from have to get to, can redefine how we feel about our duties by changing our sense of control, what other words are we using every day that might be quietly holding us back, programming us for resistance without us even realizing it? Something to think about. We really encourage you to test the power of I get to this week.
You know, I realize this idea might sound overly simplistic and maybe even like a piece of pop psychology, but sometimes the simplest shifts really are the ones that help us the most. And this one can be surprisingly effective, especially when you're facing an unpleasant task or a difficult conversation. That's often where the have-to mindset weighs us down the most. So give it a try, just once today. When you catch yourself saying, I have to, pause for a moment. Gently swap it out with, I get to, and notice what happens. Notice how it changes your posture or your tone or even the way you breathe through the moment. And honestly, I would love to hear how this lands for you, how it changes your perspective if you try it. So if you're comfortable, leave a comment or send me an email. I always enjoy hearing your stories and reflections. So thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have a friend that you think could use this, share it with them. Maybe it'll give them a lift. And I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.
You've been listening to the Steady Steps podcast, thoughtful moments and practical insights to help you walk a more intentional path. This show is written and produced by Brian Volpone with M1016 Productions. Our theme music is generated with Mubert. AI voice performances and discussions are supported by Notebook LM, Gemini, and ChatGPT. You can learn more, listen to past episodes, or get in touch at steadystepspodcast.com or email us at any time at steps@steadystepspodcast.com. Thanks for listening and keep taking steady steps.